My name is Debbie Reynolds. They call me the Data Diva. Today I want to talk about my 2022 data privacy prediction. So every year I put out a prediction for what I think is going to be the hot topic for the year. So for 2022, I think the hot topic will be third-party risk. So in particular, third-party data risk without consent of the individual. So what we're seeing is a groundswell of regulations being passed, new regulations where they're creating more obligations for third-party data holders. So it's not just first-party data holders that have responsibilities, but also third parties. So these laws are calling into question what organizations are doing when they transfer data to third parties. And many of these regulations are putting consent as kind of one of the key reasons or one of the key legal basis for people to do these transfers. So, for example, we're seeing a lot of companies being fined for things like third-party data transfer risk. There was a recent T-Mobile data breach that was a breach of third-party data. Also, there was a recent fine in Europe for Grindr with kind of a third-party data transfer without consent. So regulators are definitely getting keen on this particular issue. Third-party data sharing risk has been part of the calculus of things like GDPR for many years now, but we're seeing, especially in the U.S., as the U.S. transitions from a notice country to more of a consent country at a state level, we're seeing almost all these state level laws that are being passed address the third-party data transfer issue and the consent issue. So there's also in 2022 going to be a lot more scrutiny on third parties in terms of contracts. So in Europe, we saw an update of standard contract clauses, and organizations who were using old clauses before from the previous data directive will have up until December of 2022 to update any of their third-party contracts with these new clauses. So third parties should expect to see a lot more addendums to contracts, a lot more new contracts where they're being called to do new and different and probably more strenuous things in terms of describing the type of data that they're collecting, describing what their process and procedure is for handling data, describing what their kind of security around that data will be. And then also there are going to be a lot more fines and penalties for sale of data to marketers. So we're seeing, there's a big case in Europe going on right now with the Interactive Advertising Bureau about their method for telling advertisers how to transfer third-party data, and that's become under a lot of scrutiny. And actually, I think they think a ruling will come down saying that process is not compliant with GDPR in Europe, which means that like over 80% of companies that use that process are not compliant if they're doing it that way. So I think, I know third-party risk has always been there, but I think in 2022, regulators, these new laws that are coming into play, these new fines, these new cases that are coming into play, definitely, and then things like Apple's app transparency, where they're basically saying third-party companies need to create first-party relationships with organizations so that they can minimize their own third-party risk. So 2022 is going to be the year where we talk a lot about third-party risk and also consent. That's it. Thank you.